All right, let's go Philadelphia Eagles. Two more teams to discuss here in the NFC East. The Eagles kick things off by trying to trade up over and over and over again. They finally trade up one spot from 32 to 31 to get Jihad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. We'll discuss that process in a minute here. Second rounder, Andrew Makuba, the safety out of Texas. Drake Holiday favorite. Drake in the chat, tell everybody how much you love Makuba. Fourth rounder, Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. Projectable, really athletic player. Interesting fourth rounder there. Mac McWilliams, the cornerback out of UCF in the fifth. The other fifth rounder, whose name always reminds me of you, Smail Mondone, Georgia linebacker. It's Sam's name, just missing a few vowels, right? Or mixing a couple up. Drew Kendall, the Boston College center. They get Kyle McCord, Syracuse, developmental quarterback. Couple developmental tackles, and Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, and then Antoine Powell Ryland, APR, the pass rusher out of Virginia Tech. High volume draft here for the Eagles, heavy on day 3. What were your thoughts on this Eagles draft?
Yeah, I thought it was a good draft. Jihad Campbell, I think, is a great pick value-wise. People love this guy. I was surprised how far he slid in the first round. People were talking about him. His stock seemed to be going up as we got closer and closer to the draft. Now he's working through an injury, but I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be a factor, really. But people were sort of pushing him higher and higher and going, I wonder how high he could go in this first round. Maybe he's a sneaky top 10 candidate. And minimum, his floor is in that Tampa Bay range, 10 picks earlier than this. And he ends up going all the way down to Philadelphia. Now the Eagles are trying to get him 10 picks earlier, and maybe he would have gone that high. But still, I think it's a good pick for them and a great value spot. Makuba in the second round, I think, is really good. It is. So we asked at draft time. They finally got the deal done, and it was with Kansas City to move up one spot. And we wondered what kind of information takes place in those conversations, because these are theoretically, they're the two Super Bowl teams, right? They're direct competitors. How much do you want to help your direct competitor at these weird trades at the bottom of the first round that have happened the last couple of years? Somebody told us that apparently the conversation went offense or defense, right? Simply ask the question. You're not going to tell me the player you're coming up for. I just want to know if it's offense or defense. And when he said defense, they're like, okay, that's fine. It's not the guy we're looking for. We can make the deal. At the point where they say, okay, offense or defense is fine, we can make the trade. Don't you therefore not need to make the trade anymore?
Yeah. No, but the Eagles don't know. So the Chiefs are like, okay.
No, but so you're Philadelphia, you phone up Kansas City, you're like, hey, we want to trade.
And then the Chiefs say yes, and then the Eagles, okay. So then the Chiefs say yes, and then the Eagles like, okay, forget it.
Yeah. So then Howie asks, or then the Chiefs ask the question, offense or defense? Because, we're not moving if you're taking our guy. And Howie answers defense, and they go, okay, that's cool. We're fine. We can move out of this spot because you're not taking our guy. At that point, shouldn't Howie go, oh, forget it then. You're not taking our guy. We're good.
I don't know. I think the other mentality occurs because he was trying to trade up, I think, as high as 21 or 22. And to do that, you probably have to give up, say, a 3. And by the end of this quest to trade up to get Jihad Campbell, they probably actually would have had to give up maybe 2 3s, because that's what the Texans gave up, a 3 this year and a 3 next year, say. By the end of this quest where you were willing to give up, let's say, a 3 or 2 3s, if it was just a 5 to trade up one spot for Campbell, you're just like, whatever. That was like what I said about Kwesi and the Vikings last year, where they got J.J. McCarthy by sitting. They were willing to give up multiple picks to go get him, and they didn't need to. And by the end of it, it's like, well, we were going to use these picks on J.J. anyway. Let's go get Dallas Turner too. And it's almost like better than I anticipated coming in. So, yeah, the Eagles clearly wanted Jihad Campbell, who he was rising for me because I kept looking at all the teams in the teens who had defensive needs, particularly defensive line needs. And every defensive lineman that I said, well, the question marks here and question marks there, I could see a team saying, just give me the safest 3-down linebacker, the clear best linebacker prospect in the draft in Jihad Campbell, because then it's maybe Schlesinger, maybe then it's Demetrius Knight, but it's a big drop-off at that position. And I think that's why Howie was really valuing Jihad Campbell. I know someone in the chat also mentioned, hey, this was in a traditional Eagles draft, getting the big boys later. I think that's why it doesn't feel as great to me with the Eagles, because I thought they were going to go the big boy draft, the deep edge and defensive line, defensive tackle draft that we have here was going to mesh nicely with them losing Milton Williams and losing Josh Sweat this offseason. Not that they're depleted on the defensive line, but like the Bills just did, getting 12 deep, the Eagles like to be 8 to 10 deep, right? So I thought they were going to replenish there, but they went differently and got Campbell, best linebacker prospect, and they go safety, Makuba, you could argue top 3 or 4 safety prospect, good, safe player who's probably going to play and, is good all around. So interesting by Howie there going linebacker and safety in a draft that was really deep and near and dear to his heart, with defensive linemen.
Yeah, the other element of Jihad Campbell. So I love the fit for the Eagles. I think it's a great player to add in. Zach Bond, Jihad Campbell. You've got Nakobe Dean, who maybe drops down the depth chart now and just becomes a really phenomenal kind of role player and backup. You've got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who they drafted recently as well. Like this is suddenly and Smail Mondon Jr., my anagram. But you've got this fascinating group of linebackers now. But this thing persists about Jihad Campbell being potentially part of that edge rotation as well. And maybe offsets the fact that they didn't go hard after those defensive linemen. I don't love his tape as an edge rusher. I mean, there's a play out there of Will Campbell absolutely mauling him and tossing him to the floor when he tried to rush off the edge against Will Campbell and LSU. But, a lot of Eagles beat reporters are sort of talking about him as a linebacker / edge, not just a linebacker. Like this thing is persisting that he might be part of that edge rotation.
Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. Are there rumblings about that coming out of the draft?
Yeah.
Or are you just saying going in?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't love him as an edge prospect. I liked him as a blitzer, but who knows? I mean, he was an edge recruit coming out of high school. I love Jihad Campbell as a player, though. I think he's a classic sideline to sideline, chase and run linebacker with coverage chops as well. And maybe he has some pass rush. He has some pass rush ability. Maybe he has some edge rush ability in there as well. Makuba, good dependable safety, great get at late in the second. I think Drake already gave his rundown on him, the way he hits, runs around. He made some big plays for Texas last year after transferring from Clemson. Ty Robinson, the other one I wanted to discuss. So they finally go defensive line with one of their 3, 6, 8 day 3 picks here. Ty Robinson from Nebraska, 6'5", 310, but never really had a good year until last year, 2024. Was always a projectable player. Finally does it in his 5th year at Nebraska, where he was pretty effective all around, just making plays. But his workout was really, really good. Ran a 4.83 at 310 pounds, 1.7 10-yard time, so pretty good getting off the line of scrimmage. Above average vertical, broad jump, shuttle of 4.5. So he's a really good athlete, older player, only has 1 year of production. It's not always the guy that tends to translate at the next level. Again, you usually have guys that on the defensive line who produce consistently, but intriguing player for the 4th round here coming out of Nebraska to add to that defensive line rotation.
Yeah, and actually, the more I look at this draft, the more I like it. Later in the 5th round, they got a couple of kind of all-star bowl game players. A lot of people really liked Mac McWilliams, the cornerback from UCF. And then late in the draft, so the Kyle McCord thing, developmental quarterback, the Eagles take those on the regular. He's got a big arm. He's got the tools to be something. It's fine. It's a good pick in the 6th round, just because I agree with their principle that you should basically always roll the dice at a developmental quarterback every draft. And then later in the draft, they went with let's get Jeff Stoutland some projects. Let's see, we speculated, hey, Lane Johnson is not, people in his draft class are retiring left and right. Lane Johnson's still playing like the best right tackle in the game, but how long can that go on for? Well, the players that they're drafting late in this draft are all classic. Let's give Jeff Stoutland a couple of toolsy balls of clay and see if he can create another Jordan Mailata, right? Cameron Williams, monster from Texas with physical tools to become a player. Miles Hinton from Michigan, 6'7", 323 pounds. These are guys that have the tools to be really good offensive linemen, but may need some work. And who better to do that work than Jeff Stoutland? Yeah,
Cameron Williams, he 1 year starting at Texas, only 1,100 career snaps, and goes in the 6th round. I mean, there was a time I didn't love Williams as a prospect, as a player. Right? I don't think he's there yet. and he's young, and I thought he could have gone back to school. He's only 21 years old, but yeah, he's got almost 35-inch arms, and he's 6'6", 334. So in the 6th round, that's fantastic.
Right.
I mean, I love developmental tackles, even though you get like 1 out of 15 that actually hit, 1 out of 20. But with Stoutland, Williams' ability, he's still young, 1-year starter. There's a lot of boxes ticked for that's a good developmental tackle prospect.
Yeah, and they took a couple of those guys. So, like, I mean, again, no better coach to work with those guys than Stoutland. So, absolutely, grab a couple of 6th rounders and see if you can turn one of those into the Lane Johnson successor.
And Antoine Powell-Ryland, some pass rush chops off the edge. Had a really nice year at Virginia Tech. Had a 4-sack game in there came via Florida and became one of Virginia Tech's best players last season. Better pass rusher than run defender. So, yeah, some athletic defensive linemen, couple developmental tackles. After, I think you get 2 starters at the top, or potential starters, in Jihad Campbell and Andrew Makuba. Another really nice Eagles draft, but in different ways, right? Again, it surprised me that they didn't go defensive line early, because there's a lot of good options there, right? They had a shot at an Ezeraku and players we thought they were just going to plug and play and add to the mix. And to be clear, they're not depleted on the defensive line, despite losing Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. They've got Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, the great Moro Ajomo is there, who I loved a couple years ago in the 7th. You add Ty Robinson to that group, and then on the edge, you still have Nolan Smith. Are we saying Jihad Campbell is definitely going to be an edge there? You have Jalix Hunt, who had a really nice run down the stretch. Bryce Huff is still on the roster. Josh Uche is there. So I don't think it's as top heavy as it's been previously on the edge, but yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see what they end up doing with Jihad Campbell here.
They ended up being ranked 5th in Rene Bugner's composite grading, and Arif Hassan's value model relative to the consensus board ranked them as a top 10 draft as well. So generally, consensus-wise, one of the best drafts out there, I think.
Everyone's afraid to doubt Howie anyway. You're afraid. That's just... Except
me pulling them up on not realizing you could have sat pat and done nothing. Now, I guess you could say, look, the pick guarantees nobody else jumps them 1 pick, but still. Roll the dice, Howie. Come on.
Those are some of my favorite stories of the drafts, right? The other one that comes to mind was the Bucks trying to get Tristan Wirfs back in 2020. They picked him at 13. They had pick 14. They were trying to get up as high as 6 or 7, I think, and every team said no. And then they traded up 1 spot from 14 to 13 to assure that they get him. At the end of the day, you're excited, right? It's like, I would have given up way more for this guy, and we still got him. Always like thinking about the what could have been on the other end. Like they would have missed out on some of these other players if someone else just said yes and they traded up to get Jihad Campbell.
Right.
So this was not Howie letting the draft come to him. This was him going to get it. We also had
the draft coming to Howie despite his best intentions.
I know. Howie does it again.
Even when he's not trying to let the draft come to him, the draft comes to him.
And so the other last thing for the Eagles, not as much defensive line investment in this one as I expected, and no tight end, right? There was thoughts that deep tight end class, if they're going to move on from or trade Dallas Goedert at some point. So just something else to keep an eye on from an Eagles perspective. But yeah, consensus loves the Eagles draft once again.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.